Hi, Mike. It's amazing having you on this call, and I'm glad we could do this today. And happy to be speaking with you and having you on this startup growth series for you to share your story and your experience and how you've built your own business, about your life, and how you've built other. I actually found your story being interesting, and if you permit me, let me just read out your your bio briefly.
Absolutely, Sam. It's an honor to be here.
Amazing. So, I believe the audience will also enjoy knowing you better. So, I will go ahead and read your intro. So we have Mike here, Mike Dejong. Probably you get to explain what the meaning of the Jong or how the name came about. It sounds interesting. It sounds like probably you have an ancestral home in China or probably Japan.
It was
So we
actually
have
actually my dad's Dutch. My dad's from Holland, so that's where it came from.
oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So we have Mike here, Mike DeJong. He grew up blue collar with a steel worker dad and learned early that if you needed something, you build it yourself. From pouring concrete and framing additions to wiring, plumbing, roofing, and fixing whatever broke, hard work was simply the expectation. He started pumping gas on overnight shifts at a full service station, worked brutal hours as a busboy, hauling supplies up and down the restaurant stairs, and eventually moved into operation leadership at a Fortune 500 company. After realizing hard work alone would never create the real freedom, Mike started building businesses of his own. From GPS positioning system for heavy equipment to multi-unit franchise operations. Along the way, he nearly lost everything, coming within 60 days of bankruptcy while borrowing on credit cards and from high-interest lenders to survive. Today, Mike helps business owners, escape what he calls the operator trap by building systems, leaders, and businesses that can run without them. He is the author of The Grow Smart and speaks on the mindset shift required to move from a worker to an owner. Amazing, Mike. Your story actually it's very interesting, and I'm happy to have you on this session.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Absolutely an honor to be here. I'm just excited to have a conversation with you today.
Amazing. So going back to your story, probably you share. Would love to hear the narration from you yourself. I know right reading from the bio you shared might sound probably this guy is the one reading it, but hearing it from you, I feel it will better be delivered from the horse's mouth itself. So I would love to hear from you. Probably give a brief about your history, your background, and everything. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Sam. So a lot of those early jobs were when I was in high school. Our
Oh,
family had a big work ethic, so even during high school, you're expected to work. And the full service gas station job, for example, was Thursday nights after school till 11 at night, and then Friday I work a double 11, 7, 3 to 11, then 11 to 7 the next day, and then Saturday 3 to 11, 11 to 7, then Sunday 3 to 11. So I always got
wow,
my 40 hours in just a few days, even while going to high school.
wow.
And I thought, well, this isn't a lot of fun. I want to do something where I use my brain a little more. So I went and got a pilot's license, Sam, and I started flying commercial jets,
Wow.
and which was a great job. You get to look out the window a lot, but the training is amazing, and you really have to spend a lot of time and energy learning all the systems and processes. But most of the time, the flying got to be a little routine, and it wasn't very intellectually stimulating to me. And I'm flying around in the corporate jets with the people in the back that were the movers and the shakers of the world. And I'm like, I don't want to be driving them around. I want to be one of them. So how could I do that? And most of them who would talk to me, they said, well, you got to have a better education. So I went back to school and I got an engineering degree. And then I started traveling the world myself, working in the steel industry, which was a lot of fun. And then from there, move into a couple of side hustles, like making the custom GPS equipment, and then eventually a corporate Fortune 500 job where I was multiple states and thousands of units. I was responsible for making sure all the tech worked, all the systems worked, if we had someone drive through a building, or if it flooded, or if it burned down, and all the stuff that kept all those units running day in and day out, which was great. And then even that wasn't building for myself, right? You're still building for someone else. And
Exactly.
I finally took the leap after 1 year where the board voted to give everyone the exact same bonus. We all get the same amount of money, which on paper sounds amazing, but in reality, my area did extremely well that year, and a lot of areas didn't. And I'm like, I'm not getting rewarded here. This is not. I don't live in a socialist country. I need to do something else, and that's when I really started looking at what business I wanted to do myself. I looked at the I call them jobbies, hobbies that I made some money with. And I'm like, I really don't think I could scale those very well. And I looked at flight instructor. I was doing that on the side. I'm like, that could be scalable, but probably still not where I want to be. So I started looking into franchise systems, and I eventually ended up buying into a franchise system and building multiple locations over the last decade, and buying some ones that weren't doing so well and fixing those up and getting them ready and sold. And yeah, just been having a good time, and a lot of failure along the way, Sam. That's, I guess, what we're going to talk about today is those inflection points where I figured out how to dig myself out of a hole, and what I want to help you and your audience with today, so that they don't have the same problems. They could avoid the pitfalls.
Exactly, and we'll be getting into that. Definitely, I would love to hear more about that. What actually piqued me, while you share your story, is that definitely there are a lot of founders out there that share similar experience as you. Probably right now they're still working their career. They have the dream of probably one day sitting at the back of a jet and having been flown around. So I believe your story will be an inspiration for them. So let's dive right into it. The first question I have for you, Mike, is you grew up as a blue collar doing physical work from a young age. How did that upbringing shape the way you think about building a business today?
So at first it was amazing, because hard work translated into a success. If you put the hours in, if you put the time in, you're going to be successful. But this is what I call the operator trap, because you hit a point, most business owners hit a point where they run out of hours in the week. There's only 168 hours in a week. You got to sleep during some of them. Maybe you should bathe, take a shower once in a while. You want to eat. Maybe your family wants to see you, but you can't work the whole 168 hours. And you hit this ceiling where you can't grow any higher without starting to shift the way you think. So the hard work is what got me going and got me to a really good spot, but it was also the same thing that held me back for a few years until I figured out a way to move past it. Like, I still work hard, but I work differently now. So
I think one thing we can say is your slogan, probably something that pushes you, is hard work. And I've heard it from a lot of speakers, a lot of people that have actually made impact in the world in terms of business wise, startup wise, and or life wise. They've actually worked hard, and this is all saying to the audience that working hard is actually very important. It's paramount. So let's go into the next question I have here. You went from an operations leadership at a Fortune 500 company to building your own businesses. You talked about getting a franchise. And what was the moment you realized that the corporate part would never give you the real freedom? And it was probably you actually got to a point where, oh, I know you mentioned the bonus check. So aside from the bonus check, what actually pushed you to actually live in the Fortune? Because a lot of people are actually looking for the position at the Fortune 500 right now. But
yeah.
you had that, you had the money coming in, but that wasn't enough for you. So what actually drove you to actually starting your own business and scaling it?
That's an excellent question. There was a few inflection points along the way. Another one on that journey was I was looking to make the jump from the operations side to the I call it the money side, the people that were meeting with the customers and bringing in the cash into the company. And I had a sponsor on that side that's like was excited to bring me over, but my current boss on my side refused to let me go. And he's like, no,
Wow.
I need you too much over here, so we can't do that. We'll revisit it in a year or two. And I'm like, oh, that was so you're getting in the way of my growth. That didn't feel too good. And then another thing that has been both a blessing and a curse my whole life is I get very restless. So I tend to work very hard in whatever role I'm in. I become that indispensable employee. I'm just like, I just need to know everything and understand everything. And then I get restless and I want to go do something else because I get bored in that area. Now I've grown past that, Sam. Now I realize that I've gotten very good. If you think of the standard, curve that goes like this, I've gotten to the top of it, maybe the top right, but the goats, the greatest of all time, the best in their field, they go down the other side of that distribution curve, and they become, for the math geeks out there, one or two standard deviations to the right. Those are the people that, the one percenters, the people that are just absolutely the best at the best. And I'm like, so I've kind of changed my thinking from, okay, I've gotten really good, now to go do something else, to how can I get that last few percentage and actually become the best in this area. And that's the intellectual stuff that I need. So it's kind of a mixture of a few things that changed me, made me want to jump ship and go start something for myself.
Awesome. I think I love the part where you were looking at, oh, what is the next stage for me? Like the next level for me. How can I become better at this? And then I think most founders also need to look into that in terms of what is your next stage? What do you want to actually do? And how can you move to that? So the next one, which I found very interesting, you mentioned bankruptcy, which is 60 days of bankruptcy, where you
Yeah.
had to borrow from card and credit cards and all. So take us inside that season. What was going through your mind and what kept you from quitting? Because quitting is actually something that I attended an event recently, and the question someone asked the founder was, how do I know when to quit and how do I know when to keep going on? So what actually kept you from quitting and what made you to keep going on and keep doing this?
So the keeping me from quitting part was I knew from past experience that this had been a profitable business, that there's money to be made here if it's run correctly, the right people doing the right things, etc. So like there was no reason to quit just because I hit a roadblock. If I could figure out the funding for the next 60 to 120 days to keep the lights on and the doors open. So it wasn't like it wasn't a deep analysis like, oh, is this worth it or not? I knew it could be. The real, you said how I was feeling. It was a gut punch. Like I was living high. I wasn't. I got to the spot because I wasn't watching the correct key performance indicators. I thought I built this business of freedom. I put in these procedures. I hired the people. And then I started traveling. Like that year, I went to South Africa twice, Botswana. I went to Zambia, Zimbabwe. I went to Australia.
You started flying behind the jets now, not driving the jets.
Right, I was sitting in the back. Exactly. These were airliners for those trips, but they were as comfortable. I was going business class, with the lay flat seats. I was having this great time, and I kept my only key performance indicator was, is there money in my bank account? January comes, and in my business we make most of the money in November, December, not a third of the year, in those 2 months, actually the last 6 weeks of the year, and that holds us until Easter. because it's a very slow business until Easter. So you have a few months of very slow sales. And the bank account wasn't even like, it wasn't that it was fat, it was empty. Like, how am I going to pay next week's payroll? And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? So I had to dig in and figure out what happened, and put the changes in place. And some people quit and other people stepped up, and I got it figured out. But I wasn't looking at the right things, which
Right,
is
KPI.
yeah.
Probably.
And
So this is telling the founders listening that while you're scaling, while you're building, you need to put your eyes on the goals, on the key metrics that actually matter, and not
yes,
take your eyes off it. That's beautiful. I think it's a great lesson that they'll be taking away. You've also talked about being the operator trap. I think that word you've used it a lot. Like founders moving from being an operator trap to taking ownership and relieving the business. So let's talk about founders who built a business but are still essentially just working a job. How does a founder know they are trapped, and what is the first move to get out?
most people say they're not. They're like, I'm not trapped, Mike. I have a lot of people running my business for me. I'm not stuck in it day to day. I'm like, okay, can you take a week off without your cell
Mm.
phone, without your laptop, without any communication with your business? And they're like, usually there's a hesitation. And they're like, well, no, I have to be available for when they have questions about what? And they'll think about it and they'll list a few things. I'm like, okay, you're still in charge of or responsible for those tasks. You haven't operationalized them. You haven't put a procedure in place. You haven't found a person that's better than you at that role. Because the next thing they say is, well, no one's as good as me at doing these things, so I can't hand them off. And that's a mindset piece too. There's always someone out there that's actually better than you. So the next part of the trap, or to answer the second part of your question, is how do you get out of it? Is coming to terms with realizing that you are the roadblock, putting the ego aside, and realizing that to have the true freedom that you want, it's whatever freedom looks like to you. Everyone's got a different definition of freedom. I don't believe there's one's definition.
Sure.
But putting that ego aside and saying, okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to update? What do I need to move around? What do I need to do so I can remove myself from the day-to-day operations and become the true owner and get the true freedom that I want? And once they start realizing they can do it, then the next step after that is to start executing on it. And I have some ideas in that area too, if you want to talk about them.
Awesome. So I think we should just dive right into that. The next question actually brings that up in terms of what is the difference between a founder who was successfully transitioned from being an operator from the operator trap to taking ownership and also delegating, taking himself or herself out of the business, allowing the business to run without him or her. So what's the difference and how can they achieve that?
So the biggest difference is, so an owner is looking at strategy. An owner is looking at setting the direction. An owner decides how resources are allocated. An operator deals with the day-to-day. Whatever that looks like, in short, they're just dealing with the day-to-day. So I've met with lots of founders. I talk to them. That's what I do. And most of them will tell me, I am doing the strategy. I'm like, all right, well, what does your day-to-day look like? And they'll tell me a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, you're still responsible for those things. Like I found out after I thought I was fully free that I was actually tech support. I went away for a long weekend, and a number of systems went down, and they had no idea how to fix them because the tech support guy, me, wasn't there. How did I fix that? When I found, an external tech support person, put them on retainer, gave everyone the phone number, etc. But people who want to transition to becoming a true owner out of that operator piece, they tend to, because we're all big swingers. Let's take the big shot on goal. You got to have a FIFA reference, right? Because FIFA is going on right now. you tend to fail because it's too big and too amorphous. And then they're like, see, I can't do this. No one's as good as me. This is impossible. And I used to actually, when I first started coaching, I like, where's your biggest lever? Where can we get you the most money? Let's change that first. And I've totally changed my philosophy on that, Sam. And it's now, what's the smallest thing we could change where we can get you a win? Like, if you're the one that orders the paper clips, how can we build a procedure that someone else could order the paper clips?
Sure.
If you're the one that pays the light bill every month, can we automate that, or can we find someone else that can, with guardrails, obviously, pay the light bill? And we just start building these small things, and we build up to the harder and the harder and the harder until we get to the really big stuff that's really going to move the needle. But you've got all these wins underneath your belt already that you're like, even though it's frustrating and it's hard and it's going to take longer than you want, you now know you can win at it. And I found that's been the best way of getting people out of the trap.
Amazing, awesome. So I believe most founders, they believe without them the business might not do well, and they instead of actually taking themselves out to solve the problem, they instead put themselves as a blockade to growth. So, and this is leading us to the next conversation around growth. So when it comes to, you talked about building from GPS to multiple franchises. How did you actually build systems that actually helped you grow these businesses and these franchises? So let's go deep dive into the growth systems. And one thing also I want to actually, like, I loved what you talked about in terms of business owners, founders taking themselves out of the business and delegating, hiring, automating. These are beautiful strategies that will actually, in return, the ROI is actually growth.
Huge.
So exactly. So now let's go down to growth. How did you actually build the systems that actually resulted into the huge growth that you just mentioned?
Well, first I have to fess up to you and all the listeners that when I initially built the business, I didn't want to have any systems. I came out of aviation and engineering, where it's all systems and all processes, and then corporate America, where it's all SOPs, all systems, all processes. And I was burned out with it. I'm like, I don't need any of this crap. I'm going to run this great business where everyone's going to be self-actualized and do the right thing. And we're going to all take care of each other and take care of the customers and make a lot of money. And that works if everyone could ask you all the questions all the time, because no one ever wants to make a decision. And then there was a moment where I realized I had to go back to building systems and building processes. And that's when I took my first vacation in years. And as I stepped off the plane, my manager at the time called and told me she was quitting, but she would stay until I got back from the vacation. And the entire vacation I spent on my cell phone and on my laptop.
Thinking about hiring.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, okay, Mike, you can't keep doing this. Look back in your past. What worked in the past? What has been the process in the past that has built success? And I'm like, oh man, I got to go to systems. I got to go to processes. So I went back and started building them, and a little bit of automation and building systems. Even me back then, but now I very quickly, like at first I'm like, this is ridiculous, and then I found an easier way. I started typing them all out and thinking, I'm like, this is stupid. This is going to take forever. So with technology these days, we live in the best time ever. This was before AI, so this is it's even easier now. But I just used Loom and Descript, these software that records your keystrokes in a picture view while you're on the computer. And I would call it verbal diarrhea. It's like, okay, I'm going to this website, and this is and then I click here, and then I'm going to this sub menu, and I'm going here, and I do this thing, and this is why I do the thing. And if it's A, I'm going to do C, and if it's G, I'm going to do Z or Z, whatever you want to call it. And I just continue. I talk it all through, and then I would send the recording to someone to see if they could do it. And the instructions to them, like, don't make any guesses or assumptions. Do this step by step how I laid it out. And if there's a problem, like something was missed, come back and let me know and we'll fix it. And usually by the third time through, sometimes the second time through, you got a process. Now you just take that and you post it on your private YouTube channel or internal Google Drive, or maybe you want it written out. You put it in your favorite AI tool and say, make a transcript of this for me. Bam, you got your first procedure. It's that simple. And then the next hardest part is getting people to follow them, because they're used to calling the founder and they're like, hey, Mike, where do I find this? Where do I order that? What do I do if this thing happens? I'm like, well, go look at the procedure. Go look at the SOP. I stopped answering my phone, Sam, or answering my text. I'd answer like an hour later. I call them back. Oh, sorry, I wasn't available. Did you figure it out? Yeah, I remembered it was in the SOPs and I went and dragged it. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Good job. But if I answer the phone, they would just ask me and then I would answer them. So I had to retrain myself. And then the other piece of that was automation. And we think of automation these days, especially with AI, as being maybe complicated. It doesn't have to be. It could be as simple as setting up a rule in your emails. Like, if you get an email from this person, move to this folder or forward to this person that will take care of it. Okay. Or make a calendar invite to remind me to call on this date. Like, it doesn't have to be super complicated, big CRM based, custom programming automations. It's just simple little tasks that just, I say, if you do it more than 3 times or it has more than 3 steps, figure out some automation or a procedure or a process for it. But start with the small stuff. Start with the easy stuff.
Amazing. Thank you, Mike. I think from what you've shared, I think these are important examples that people would definitely, listeners would definitely pick from. What actually interests me from your profile also is you wrote a book, Grow Smart.
Yes, sir.
And I believe you're also writing a second one. So before we talk about the second one, let's talk about Grow Smart. So what is the core idea behind it, and what do you wish more founders actually understood before they start building or scaling?
Yeah, thank you for that. I wrote the book under duress. I've been coaching people for a number of years, and it's kind of the same mistakes I made, I see them make, and I'm trying to help them course correct. And after doing this for some period of time, people would be like, hey, Mike, you need to write this down. You need to write this down in a book. I'd be speaking on a stage and they're like, hey, have you written this in a book anywhere? Because I want to follow up and go deeper on this. And I'm like, no, I haven't done that. That's crazy. I'm just a blue collar guy from a small town in Northern Canada. Like, what do I can't write a book. Mind shift. But enough people said it. And I eventually wrote down a lot of what we're talking about today. It's kind of the process around identifying if you're an operator and owner. There's a test in there that kind of puts you on the map so you can kind of see where you're at. And then working on the mindset piece and working on the people piece and the procedures piece and the KPIs piece, all the way through to what's your exit strategy. Because if you don't have an exit strategy, you just have a job. Even if you're an owner, you still just have a job with overhead. Like, how are you going to get out? Eventually, you're going to want to retire. Or are you going to do this till you die? Most people don't want to do it till they die. So, and that's kind of the crux of the book. And then I did it with stories on things that actually happened to me on this journey. And I like to think it's a little bit more practical than I tend to read these business books and they're a little flowery, these big grand ideas. And I'm like, I got an engineering background. I'm like, do this and then do this, have this action, and this is what you're going to get.
Awesome, Mike. So how do people get, like, listeners, how do they actually get the book if you're interested in getting one?
Yeah, by the end of this week, I'm not sure when you're going to post this, Sam, but the end of this week, it'll be available on Amazon. So Grow Smart by Mike Dejong will be available on Amazon, or as of now, you could download it for free on my website at mikedejong.com.
Amazing. So if you're listening to this or watching this, then you should go grab a copy of the book, especially if you're a founder trying to scale your business or your startup. So, Mike, as we wrap up, I have probably just two more questions for you.
Yes, sir.
So, you help businesses or business owners build systems and leaders so the business can run without them. What does that process actually look like in practice? If you're to probably, like you said, an engineer, put it step by step, where does a founder actually begin? And how can they actually implement everything that we've talked about today, step by step?
Yeah. So the first step is figuring out your outcome. How removed do you want to be? Like in my case, I love to travel. I'm talking to you from an Airbnb in right outside of Washington, D.C. When we spoke a couple or last week, I was at a different Airbnb in Galveston, Texas. So what's your outcome? What's the outcome that you want? Let's start with that. And it's all the way from how you want to live your life every day to what your exit strategy looks like. And then you work backwards from there. So in my case, I didn't want to be in the building. So I had to have the right people that could handle each and every task. But to do that, there had to be enough money coming in. Okay, well, that means I had to delay that. I couldn't do it the next day. It was a multi-year process of bringing in the right people and growing them and then growing the sales so that I could be able to do it. But it's backing up step by step the people you need and the processes you need, and then evolving those as you grow, Sam, because what got me to 100,000 broke before I got to 1 million. And as I'm working towards 10 million, it's going to break again. And that was what failed me when I almost got to the bankruptcy, is the systems were too rigid. It was if you can't produce this, hire another person. It wasn't if you can't produce this, make sure that the people there are actually working at the minimum speed. It like there was some holes in the process. So some revision levels. And then through the whole process, knowing that you can't completely remove yourself. There's certain KPIs, and it's different for every business. There's certain KPIs you have to look at least weekly. I look at some daily, some monthly, some quarterly, and some annually. But it's not too many. You want to just find the right ones. For me, it's I like sales per labor hour. It tells me if we're being efficient. I like to look at, well, that's the big one actually on a daily basis. But there's a few others. One that bit me recently was I wasn't looking at a certain turnover rate, and we got dinged for it on an inspection because 3 other people below me should have been looking at that, and they weren't. And I just assumed, which we all know makes an ass of you and me, that this was happening. So now there's certain metrics that I do. I call it a reach down quarterly. Like they're not in my normal purview, but I kind of look once in a while. So just organizing it from the outcome down to like where you are, and then after you get the outcome, the next piece before all that in between stuff I was talking about is honestly, and I mean honestly, assessing where you're at. Not pie in the sky, not what you want to be, not how you think you are, not how you think people see you, not better than it is, not worse than it is, an actual reality check of where you're at, because then you know how to get there.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. And I think that's a beautiful one. And most founders should actually know the outcome, the dream business, the dream life they want for themselves, and then build it out and then viewing where they are currently in terms of the business, and then building systems. So thank you, Mike. To close, I think if a founder is listening right now and he's in the hard middle, that's struggling, doubting, barely holding on, what is the one thing you will tell them that you wish someone actually told you?
So I want them to think about this. Everyone says they want something. Everyone says they want something, Sam, but they want nothing more. So what do they want more? And an example with that's easy for everyone to understand is I say I want a 6-pack. I want to have tight abs, but I want to eat cookies more. So I have things that are getting in the way of me achieving my results. So everyone says they want something. I want to make $1 million, $10 million. I want to live on a boat. I want to have an airplane. I want to have these things, but I want to watch Netflix more. I want to eat cookies more. I want to get in the own way because I'm the only person that could do this more. What do you want more? Figure that out and you'll get out of your own way.
Amazing. Thank you, Mike. I think every founder should actually ask themselves, what do you actually want? And I think there's a statement that I actually read, and which is actually very, very beautiful. It says, if you're being followed around for a week, would they say you actually want your dream life? Would they say you actually want the business you're building? Would they actually say you want to scale your startup? If they follow your activities for a day, for a week, for a month, what will people say about you? And I think that drives home what you actually want. And it's either you, I think I read this somewhere also, it's either you increase your sacrifice or you reduce your desire. So you can't increase your desire for something and while reducing the sacrifices you're making. So if you want the big business, if you want the growth, if you want to make a $10 million business, you definitely have to know exactly what you want and go after it. And while you're building, just like Mike said, you need to actually fix your systems. You need to move from being in the operator trap to becoming a smart business owner. And that's the only way you can grow smartly. So if you're listening to this, definitely reach out to Mike if you're interested in getting in touch with him for probably consulting or talking. And most importantly, to start with, he said his book is free and the book is on his website, mikedejong.com. So go grab a copy, and if you want the hard copy, to be out very soon on Amazon. So I'm looking forward to the book, and definitely I'll also get the hard copy myself. So thank you, Mike, for jumping on the call and sharing this deep wisdom. I believe this is what most business owners need to scale from the level at which they are right now. Probably they're stressed out, they're thinking about how can I scale my business, and they are just all in the business without actually knowing where to actually grow. And I believe this session, this podcast has actually helped them to actually know where to start from and what to do in terms of you sharing the steps and where to actually take themselves out in terms of hiring, delegating, automating. And the beautiful thing you said is that it doesn't have to actually be too complicated. You can start with your Google Drive, recording a video in Google Drive. You can start with just probably typing it out using a few like coding tools to just type prompt engineer the process. So you just need to look for where you are currently and build those systems to the place that you dream to become or the business that you're dreaming of building. Then you can build the systems to actually get there. So Mike, I don't know if you have any other words for the listeners before we jump off.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity and everyone to know that they can do this. Absolutely everyone can do this. Just get out of your own way.
Amazing. So you just heard what Mike said. Get out of your own way and go after the dream life, the dream business. And lastly, I'll use the word from this book, grow smartly. So thank you, Mike, and thank you for jumping on this session and staying to this time, and for like the valuable lessons that you shared on this session. And I look forward to having you in the probably future sessions and probably on the different topics. But it was lovely hearing your story and sharing insights. And I look forward to having more conversations.
Me too, Sam. Me too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Bye for now.